Good afternoon and good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty 360. Welcoming you to another episode of What We're Hearing, What We're Seeing podcast. This week's podcast is for the week of January 28th. Interesting week we had last week at Loyalty 360. We had a number of great brand interviews, which you'll see coming up on the site over the next week or so. We spoke with the Chief Marketing Officer at USA Today, Gannett, and they talked about some of the programs they are developing to really help combat the challenge of the changing demographics they see, the changing preferences they see for content. They have an insider program they developed with their local brands. Most people don't know that USA Today has a number of local brands in Cincinnati. It's the Cincinnati Enquirer, but many local affiliates have local brands, and how they're attacking the local market is simply different than what they're doing nationally at the USA Today. Focusing on a lot of local sports, but also creating a rewards program and an engagement program that allows those in the local market to truly engage in unique experiences, with the hopes that people will continue to use that program, drive membership, and get access to those exclusive benefits. Very unique program. They developed that program all by themselves, which is unique as well. We see a number of recent brands that have developed a lot of their technology process internally. And it's good to see that. It's refreshing to see. We also spoke with the president of Carnival Cruise Lines. You'll see that article coming up on the site really soon as well. Very interesting on how they are looking at employee engagement, employee empowerment. They have a unique approach where they believe that everyone who touches that guest within that cruise experience is very important. They talked extensively about employees, whether it's the cook, the chef, the steward, who make that unique impact. So it's been a challenge for them, but it's proved very rewarding to truly empower and enable that frontline guest to do that. And it's been part of their culture. They felt they've led the way in the cruise line industry in allowing and enabling that. They talked about one example where it was the person who actually cleaned the room, who washed and dried the sheets on a daily basis, kind of challenging her to make some unique impacts, and she did some very unique things where it truly impacted the guest experience, that frontline experience, and we continue to hear that as well. We've heard a lot from Vanderbilt Health and some others, that frontline employee who maybe even just changing the bedpan feel that they have a part in the organization, they have a stake in the organization, they have that meaningful work we continue to hear more and more about. So it was great to have those two interviews. Again, those will be on the site very, very soon. We'll look forward to checking them out. We also, last time we spoke, or last time you listened to us, we talked about the Academia and Authors podcast series we just started. The first one is Mitch Preinstein. He's a professor at the UNC, University of North Carolina College. He is in the psychology department. He's written a book called Popular, and it really looks at what creates popularity throughout high school and going beyond, and how that popularity really impacts success, and most importantly, impacts how happy you are as an individual. A lot of the things that he believes and he talks about as popularity growing up through high school is not actually what in turn ends up being drivers of success going forward. So there's a very unique approach to that. He talks about some of the Japanese cultures and some of the Far East cultures, and where they're really looking at the holistic view of society and the individual, and how the individual can fit into the society and drive meaningful engagements in themselves that impact not only their well-being, but also that of the state. So that podcast is live. There's a series, there's a Q&A, as well as a feature article on the site too. Love to have you guys take a look at that. I'd love to hear your feedback on that as well. Also, we have another podcast on the site this week. Gina Valente, who is the Vice President of Brand Engagement, Hampton Inn. Very similar to some of the things we heard with Carnival. Hamptonality, they call it. It's a belief that, again, that frontline employee, whether it's the person cleaning the room, cleaning the sheets, or checking you in at that hotel, has a very unique role in creating and setting expectations, but also making sure they're delivered on, that in turn drive that long-term brand loyalty that all brands are looking for. Very unique podcast. So for the members of Loyalty 360, check that out. Again, Everything we reference throughout this this video cast, will have links at the bottom, so you'll be able to see what we are referencing, and you'll be able to click on them and actually see them in more detail. And if there's something you think we should be talking about, we'd love to have that, and we'd love to interview you as well. The last thing we have from last week, last Thursday, we had a webinar. As most of you know, we do a webinar series called Executive Perspectives. And what the Executive Perspectives are is a look at brands around a specific challenge. So when we talk to a brand, whether it's a Hampton Inn or a USA Today or Carnival Cruise Lines, we ask them a series of questions around customer loyalty, customer experience. That could be something as simple as the challenge of data analytics, how they look at that, how they're measuring customer loyalty, what does customer loyalty mean to them. So we have a series of questions that we ask most all brands. And then we also have kind of some variable questions around some things they're doing, technology, process. But when we ask these questions, we'll ask 30, 40 brands in a period of a month to 2 months. And what it creates is a very unique qualitative insight into the state of customer loyalty. We continue to hear that there's so much data out there, there's so many research papers and processes, and it's really hard for brands to differentiate themselves. So what the Executive Perspectives is, they take this very high-level qualitative look at a challenge. So last week, we had a webinar around the challenge of sophistication in regard to their customer loyalty, customer experience efforts, and looking at sophistication in the industry, and looking at where they may be on a scale. So we basically asked 3 questions throughout. How sophisticated would you say your customer experience and customer loyalty initiatives are? How sophisticated are the customer experience and customer loyalty initiatives of your competitors and those in the brands that you see and respect? And also, we ask them from the very nascent stages of a program where you may be considering a program to the ability to assess and integrate these disparate technologies that can truly get you to, or at least enable, customer experience and customer loyalty. Where do you exist along that spectrum? And what we saw when we asked this idea, the Executive Perspective on the challenge and level of sophistication, we saw 5 responses. And as you talk to 30 brands, 30, 35, we really need to get a kind of a nice sample that leads to kind of some breakouts. We saw 5 actually in this Executive Perspectives. The one was the belief they were sophisticated and succeeding. Second was they're not there yet. Third is an always-on approach. Next was culture conscious, and last was sticking with the basics. So sophisticated and succeeding groups like 1-800-CONTACTS, Barnes & Noble, as well as OneMain Financial, they believe they're doing very unique things. They have alignment internally with the organization. Again, that's something we continue to hear about, from the products, services, and the executive buy-in around those products and services to matching them to the customer. They have great alignment. Barnes & Noble College, they run bookstores for a number of universities across the U.S., the on-campus bookstores. So they help these universities with data and marketing where they may not be able to do so. So Miami University, as an example, they may not have the ability to run sophisticated marketing programs. So they rely on Barnes & Noble, who has information about the books they buy, the classes they are in, and they know what may make a second semester or freshman more likely to come back if he's doing X, Y, and Z. So they're helping the brands that they're working with, these different colleges, to create marketing programs and processes around that. And even OneMain Financial, who is somewhere between a prime and subprime lender, not a payday loan lender, simply above that, but they really help their customers around financial literacy. They do a number of things, from credit scores, credit counseling, to truly help them to kind of change their paradigm, which is very, very unique. They're using data, they're using technology, they're using process to do that. Not there yet. There could be restraints due to regulation in industry. We talked with Allstate and some things they're doing. They're doing very unique things and very transform things potentially, but they don't feel they're where they want to be due to the regulation, due to potentially some challenges internally, but they're doing their best to create unique experiences, to drive that deep customer loyalty, and they're doing a great job of it, but they feel that they're not necessarily there yet. The same thing for Penn State. We talked to Penn State, and they're very focused on kind of the traditional marketing paradigms. They don't look at technologies very well. There's a little bit of reticence to change within that organization, and others as well. So a number of great quotes there. So check those out. And the next one was Always On. Alex Lee, who's a grocer kind of in the Southeast, should I say. They have kind of a unique approach. They understand their heritage. They create areas within the store or concepts where everyone who's in that concept, whether it's the bakery or the meats area, they have to have that passion. They have to have that kind of identity, and it's really done a lot to kind of help transform their customer experience and customer loyalty efforts. And then we look at Marriott. They understand that how someone may be communicating their customer experience challenges in Asia may be different than what they're doing in the U.S. So they're looking at WeChat and other technologies, and they make sure they're integrated in their platform and integrated in the mobile app that drive great experience. Culture conscious is a belief that you need to be true to who you are and what got you there. Highway 55 Burgers, again, and Alex Lee, formed in the South. They have a unique approach to the customer, very customer-centric, but they're not going to adapt who they are to lose that identity and lose that truth and they have with the brand and brand promise, which is very unique. And sticking with the basics, a lot of brands, JetBlue and Capital One, are quoted in the study. They don't necessarily have to have the cutting edge technology. They want to make sure what they have works. Capital One wants to make sure the website works. When you ask for a call rep or you ask for your balance or you click throughout the site, they want to make sure it works because they understand that drives a great deal of kind of emotional impact, drives sentiment, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that works. And then JetBlue, same thing. They are focused on the technologies in the plane, throughout the app, through the call center, and they're integrated. They work. They may not necessarily need to have that cutting edge technology. They're focused on making sure what they have works and works very well. So thank you again for joining us this week on What We're Hearing, What We're Seeing. We'll have more next week. Have some great brands that join and talk to you a little bit about some other things we have going on. And again, if you have any questions, concerns, or there's something you think we should be covering, please feel free to send an email to me, Mark Johnson at loyalty360.org, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.